Little House on the Prairie was never just another family drama of the 1970s. It became a long-running cultural touchstone that blended frontier nostalgia with surprisingly modern emotional storytelling. Airing from the mid-1970s into the early 1980s, it transported audiences into the fictional community of Walnut Grove, where everyday struggles carried the weight of universal human experience. At its heart was the Ingalls family, led on screen by Michael Landon as Charles Ingalls and a young Melissa Gilbert as Laura Ingalls, whose coming-of-age journey anchored much of the series' emotional resonance. What made the show distinctive was not just its setting in 19th-century rural America, but its willingness to treat that setting as a mirror for contemporary concerns: poverty, prejudice, illness, and moral conflict. Unlike many nostalgic period pieces, the series often refused to sanitize hardship. It showed how fragile small communities could be, how quickly joy could turn into loss, and how moral decisions rarely came without cost. This balance of warmth and realism helped it become one of the most recognizable television dramas of its era. Even decades later, its influence persists in how family dramas are written, particularly in their blending of sentimentality with difficult subject matter. The story of Walnut Grove is ultimately not just about a town on the prairie, but about how television once tried to reflect the full emotional range of ordinary life. Building Walnut Grove and the rise of a television phenomenon, the creation of Walnut Grove was rooted in a broader wave of 1970s television that sought comfort in simpler, historical settings while still engaging with modern anxieties. Little House on the Prairie emerged during a period when American audiences were increasingly drawn to stories that felt grounded and morally centered, even if they were set in the past. The series built its identity around the writings of Laura Ingalls Wilder, adapting her semi-autobiographical books into serialized television drama. What resulted was a hybrid of historical fiction and emotional storytelling that felt both familiar and aspirational. Walnut Grove itself was more than a backdrop. It became a character in its own right. The town's schoolhouse, church, general store, and surrounding farmland created a contained world where every episode could explore a different facet of community life. The production design emphasized simplicity, reinforcing the idea that life's most profound moments often occur in the most modest environments. Over time, viewers developed a sense of attachment not only to the Ingalls family but to the entire town, as though it were a place that truly existed and could be visited. Characters, casting, and the emotional center of the prairie. At the core of Little House on the Prairie was its ensemble cast, whose performances shaped how audiences emotionally connected to Walnut Grove. Michael Landon, already known from earlier television work, brought both authority and vulnerability to Charles Ingalls, a father figure often portrayed as steady yet emotionally expressive. His portrayal helped define the moral tone of the series. Meanwhile, Melissa Gilbert grew alongside her character Laura Ingalls, evolving from a spirited child into a complex young woman navigating love, loss, and identity. The chemistry among the cast extended beyond the central family. Supporting characters, including teachers, merchants, and townspeople, added texture to the community, making Walnut Grove feel lived in rather than constructed. Actors like Karen Grassel as Caroline Ingalls contributed to the emotional stability of the family unit, while recurring townspeople helped expand the social fabric of the narrative. What made the casting particularly effective was its long-term continuity. Viewers watched characters age, relationships shift, and emotional bonds deepen over years of broadcast time. This continuity created an unusual intimacy between audience and fiction. The actors were not just playing roles, they were participating in a slow, serialized portrayal of life itself. That sense of familiarity is a large part of why the series retained such strong emotional resonance even after its original run ended. Michael Landon's creative control and production tensions. Behind the scenes of Little House on the Prairie, the creative environment was heavily shaped by Michael Landon, who served not only as star but also as writer, director, and executive producer. This level of involvement gave him extraordinary influence over the show's tone, pacing, and narrative direction. It also meant that many creative decisions ultimately reflected his personal vision of what Walnut Grove should represent: a place where morality, hardship, and hope constantly intersected. However, such concentrated control inevitably created friction. Differences in interpretation of characters and storylines occasionally led to tension between Landon and other members of the production team. Cast members, including Karen Grassel, who portrayed Caroline Ingalls, were sometimes reported to have disagreements regarding pay equity, screen time, and working conditions. These behind-the-scenes dynamics contrasted with the warmth projected on screen, revealing the complexity of producing long-running television. Despite these tensions, Landon's leadership ensured a consistent narrative voice across seasons. Episodes often carried his signature blend of emotional intensity and moral reflection, frequently concluding with moments designed to leave viewers contemplative rather than simply entertained. His approach shaped the identity of the series, making it as much a reflection of his storytelling instincts as it was an adaptation of historical literature. Storytelling themes that went beyond nostalgia. While Little House on the Prairie is often remembered for its nostalgic depiction of frontier life, its storytelling frequently ventured into difficult and socially relevant territory. Episodes addressed issues such as poverty, addiction, racism, disability, and violence in ways that were unusual for family television of its time. Rather than avoiding discomfort, the series often placed its characters directly into moral and emotional dilemmas that reflected broader societal struggles. Michael Landon played a significant role in shaping this direction, advocating for stories that balanced moral clarity with emotional realism. The show's willingness to confront topics such as illness, grief, and injustice gave it a depth that distinguished it from more purely escapist programming. At times, episodes could be intense, challenging viewers to engage with situations that had no easy resolution. What made this approach effective was its grounding in personal relationships. Even when addressing larger social issues, the narrative always returned to the emotional core of family and community. Characters were not abstract symbols, they were individuals whose choices carried consequences within a tightly knit social world. Behind-the-scenes conflicts and personal complications. The production of Little House on the Prairie was not without interpersonal difficulties, despite its on-screen portrayal of harmony. The intense creative environment led to occasional disputes among cast and crew, particularly as the series progressed through multiple seasons. Michael Landon, while widely respected for his creative vision, was also known for maintaining strong control over production decisions, which sometimes led to friction with collaborators. Reports from cast members over the years have suggested disagreements regarding working conditions, professional recognition, and personal dynamics. Karen Grassel has been associated with accounts of tension related to compensation and respect on set, reflecting broader industry issues of the time. At the same time, the close-knit nature of long-running television productions meant that professional relationships often became deeply personal. Complicating matters further were aspects of Landon's private life, including relationships that drew attention within the production community. These personal developments reportedly affected interpersonal dynamics among cast members, including emotional strain for younger actors like Melissa Gilbert, who viewed Landon as a mentor figure. The explosive farewell to Walnut Grove. The conclusion of Little House on the Prairie came in the form of the 1984 television movie commonly known as The Last Farewell, a finale that delivered one of the most unforgettable endings in TV history. In the story, Walnut Grove faces destruction at the hands of a land developer attempting to seize control of the town's property. Rather than allow the town to be overtaken, the residents make the drastic decision to destroy it themselves. The climactic sequence shows buildings such as the schoolhouse, church, and general store being demolished in a series of controlled explosions. While dramatized for television, the production reportedly involved the actual physical destruction of the standing set, overseen by Michael Landon. This decision gave the farewell a tangible sense of finality that few television endings have matched. The moment was emotionally polarizing. Some viewers saw it as a powerful metaphor for autonomy and closure. If the town could not be preserved, it should not be taken. Others felt it was unusually dark for a series long associated with family-friendly storytelling. Regardless of interpretation, the scene left a lasting impression, because it transformed a familiar setting into rubble before the audience's eyes. It was not just an ending, it was a deliberate act of narrative destruction that reinforced the idea that all stories, even cherished ones, must eventually conclude. Myths, syndication, and the fading of Walnut Grove. In the years following the finale of Little House on the Prairie, a number of myths developed around the destruction of Walnut Grove and the fate of the series in syndication. One common misconception was that the finale was banned or suppressed due to its darker tone. In reality, the episode aired and continued to circulate in reruns, though programming choices often favored lighter episodes that aligned better with daytime television audiences. Michael Landon's decision to end the series with such a definitive visual conclusion contributed to the legend-like status of the finale. Because the set was physically destroyed, there was no possibility of revisiting the original town in later productions, reinforcing the sense of irreversible closure. Over time, this contributed to the belief that the ending was more controversial than it actually was in broadcasting terms. As syndication expanded, the series reached new generations of viewers, many of whom encountered episodes out of narrative order. This fragmented viewing experience further shaped how the show was remembered, with certain dramatic episodes overshadowing the broader context of the series. Cultural legacy and enduring emotional impact. The legacy of Little House on the Prairie extends far beyond its original run, influencing how television approaches family storytelling, historical drama, and emotional realism. Its blend of hardship and warmth set a precedent for later series that sought to balance entertainment with meaningful social commentary. The performances of Michael Landon and Melissa Gilbert remain central to its enduring appeal, embodying a kind of emotional sincerity that continues to resonate with audiences. The show also demonstrated that television could engage with difficult subjects without losing its broad accessibility. By addressing issues such as injustice, illness, and moral conflict within a family-centered framework, it expanded the possibilities of what mainstream television could achieve. Its influence can be seen in later dramas that combine episodic storytelling with long-term character development. Beyond its technical or narrative innovations, the series endures because of its emotional imprint. Viewers remember not only specific episodes but the feeling of returning week after week to a familiar world. That sense of continuity created a lasting bond between fiction and audience, a final reflection on ending a beloved world. The conclusion of Little House on the Prairie and the destruction of Walnut Grove remains one of television's most discussed endings because it forces a question that still resonates. What does it mean to end a story completely? In choosing to physically dismantle the set, Michael Landon ensured that there would be no easy return, no reconstructed nostalgia, and no illusion that the town could remain unchanged in time. It was an ending that matched the emotional honesty the series had cultivated from the beginning. For viewers, the moment carried multiple meanings at once. It was a farewell to characters who had become familiar companions, a symbolic acknowledgement of change, and a reminder that even the most comforting worlds are temporary. Yet it also reinforced the show's central idea that life, whether on the frontier or in modern times, is defined by loss as much as by connection. Decades later, the series continues to be revisited not just as entertainment, but as cultural memory. Its final destruction did not erase Walnut Grove. Instead, it fixed it permanently in imagination. The town exists now less as a physical set, and more as an emotional landscape shared by generations of viewers. In that sense, the ending did not simply close a story. It expanded it into memory, where it continues to live long after the prairie fell silent.